When Hunter comes to meet us, he has a canteen of water and a pile of ropes slung over his shoulder. I wonder what he intends. Before I can ask, Eli speaks. Was she your sister? Eli points to the newly placed stone. Hunter doesn't glance back down at the grave. The smallest flicker of emotion crosses his face. You saw her? How long were you watching? A long time, Eli says. We wanted to talk to you, but we waited until you were finished. That's very kind of you, Hunter says flatly. I'm sorry, Eli says. Whoever she was, I'm sorry. She was my daughter, Hunter says. You can see his eyes widen. I know what she was thinking. His daughter? But he's so young. Only 22 or 23, certainly not 29, which was the youngest someone with a 5-year-old child can be in the society. But this is not the society. Indy's the first to break the silence. Where are we going? She asks Hunter. To another canyon, Hunter says. Can you all climb? When I was small, my mother tried to teach me the colors blue, she said, pointing at the sky, and blue again, the second time pointing at the water. She told me I shook my head because I could see the sky blue was not always the same as water blue. It took me a long time until I lived in Oria to use the same word for all shades of a color. I remember this as we walked through the canyon. The carving is orange and red, but you'd never see this kind of orange and red back in society. I loved the different shades, like the way I love Cassia, when I thought she'd never love me. The way I loved her on the hill. The way I loved her now that she came into the canyon for me. It's different, deeper. I thought I loved her and wanted her before, but this, as we walked through the canyon together, I realized this could be more than a new shade, a whole new color. Hunter stops ahead of us and gestures up the cliff. Here, he says. This is the best place. He begins testing the rock and looking around. I put my hand to block the sun so I can see the climb above us. Cassia glances at me and does the same. This is where Indy and I came back over, she says in recognition. Hunter nods. It's the best place to climb. There's a cave in the other canyon, Indy tells Hunter. I know, Hunter says. It's called the cavern. The question I need you to answer is about what's inside. We didn't go in, Cassia says. It's sealed tight. Hunter shakes his head. It looks like that, but my people have used it since we first came into the carving. After the society took it, we found a way back to get back in. Cassia looks puzzled. But then Hunter interrupts her. We know what's there. We don't know why. He looks at Cassia, his gaze unnerving in assessment. I think you might know why. Me, she asks, sounding startled. You've been part of society longer than others, Hunter says. I can tell. Cassia flashes and brushes her hand down her arm, as if she wants to remove some taint of society. Hunter glances over at Eli. Do you think you can do this? Eli stares up at the cliff. Yes, he says. Good, Hunter says. In a not particularly technical climb, even the society could do it if they tried. Why didn't they? Indy asks. They did, Hunter says. But this was one of our best guarded areas. Anyone trying to climb in, we'd cut down. And you can't fly an airship into the canyon. It's too narrow. They had to come in on foot, and we had the advantage. He finishes another knot and hooks the rope through one of the metal bores in the wall. It works for a long time. But now the farmers are gone across the plain, or dead on top of the carving. It's only a matter of time before the society realizes that and decides to come in. No one knows that better than Hunter. We have to hurry. We used to climb everywhere, Hunter says. The carving was all ours. He looked down at the ropes in his hands. I think he's remembering again that everyone is gone. You wouldn't think you can forget, but sometimes you can. For a moment or two, I've never been able to decide if I think that's a good thing or a bad thing. Forgetting lets you live without pain for a moment, but remembering hits hard. It all hurts sometimes. When I'm weak, I wish that the red tablet did work on me. I saw bodies on top of the carving, Indy says. She looks up at the climb, assessing it. They have blue marks like you. They were farmers too? And why did they go up if it was better to wait for society down below? In spite of myself, I admire her. She's bold to ask Hunter those questions. I've been wanting to know the answers too. That place on top is only area wide and flat enough for society to land the ship, Hunter says. Lastly, for whatever reason, they'd become more aggressive about entering the carving. And we couldn't guard all the canyons, only the ones where our township is. He makes another knot, tightening the rope. For the first time in history of the farmers, we had to split we couldn't resolve. Some of us wanted to go up and fight so the society would leave the canyon alone. Others wanted to escape. Which did you want? Indy says. Hunter doesn't answer. So those who crossed the plain, Indy says, pushing for more information, did they go to rejoin the rising? I think that's enough, Hunter says. His expression on his face keeps even Indy from asking more. She's closes her mouth, and Hunter hands her the rope. You have the most climbing experience, he says. It's not a question. He can tell somehow. She nods and almost smiles, as if looking up at the rock. I used to sneak away sometimes. There was a good spot near our house. The society let you climb? Hunter asks. She looked at him with an expression of contempt. They didn't let me climb. I found a way to do it without them knowing. You and I each take this someone up, Hunter tells her. It'll be faster that way. Can you do that? Indy laughs in response. Be careful, Hunter warns her. The stone here is different. I know, she says. Can you climb up alone? Hunter asks me. I nod. I don't tell him that I prefer it this way. If I fall, at least, I won't take anyone with me. I'll watch you first. Indy turns to look at Cassia and Eli. Which one of you wants to come with me? Eli. Cassia says, you choose. Kai, Eli says immediately. No, Hunter tells him. Kai hasn't climbed as much as we have. Eli opens his mouth to protest, but I shake my head at him. He glares at me and then walks over to stand by Indy. I think I see a small pleased smile on Indy's face before she turns back to the rock. I watch Cassia as she clips into Hunter's line and checks Eli to make sure that he's hooked up right. When I look up, Hunter is ready to begin. Cassia's jaw is set. I'm not worried about the ascent. Hunter's the best climber, and he needs Cassia safe to help him in the cave. I believe Hunter when he says he needs to know why the society did what they did. He still thinks that knowing why might help. He doesn't yet know the reason will never be good enough. Once we reach the top of the carving, we run. I hold on to Eli with one hand and Cassia with the other, and we all move, our breath quiet and fast as our feet flying across the stone. We're exposed and bare out on the rock under the sky for several long seconds. It's not nearly long enough. I feel like I could run out here forever. Look, I want to call out. We're still alive, still here. Through your data and your official want it otherwise. Feet fast, lungs full of air, holding onto our breath, holding on to people I love. I love. The most reckless thing of all. We want to get closer to the edge. We let go of each other. We need our hands for ropes. The second canyon is a true slot canyon, tiny, narrow, smaller than the Farmer's Canyon. After we've all arrived at the bottom of the cliff, Cassia points to a long, smooth surface. It looks like sandstone, but there's something odd about it. That's when we notice the entrance, she says. Her lips tighten. The boy's body is over there, under those bushes. The freedom I felt earlier is gone. The feeling of society hangs on this canyon like its torn and streaming clouds that linger after the thunderstorm. Others notice it too. Hunter's face turns grim. I know it's the worst for him because he feels the society in a place that used to be his. Hunter leads us to the tiny cave in a spot where the canyon wall folds back in on itself. All five of us can barely crouch inside, and back of the cave ends in a pile of rocks. We made a way in through here, he says. And the society never found it? Indy asks, sounding skeptical. They didn't even know how to look, Hunter says. He lifts up one of the rocks. There's a crevice behind all these stones, he tells us. Once we're inside, we can go through the corner of the cavern. How do we do it? Eli asks. Move the earth, Hunter says. Hold your breath in and the tight spots. He reaches for one of the boulders. I'll go first when it's time, he says over his shoulder. Then Cassia will talk each other through the turns. Go slowly. There's a place where you need to lie on your back and push yourself through with your feet. If you get stuck, call out. You'll be close enough to hear me. I can talk you through. It's the tightest just before the end. I hesitate for a moment, wondering if it's a trap. Could the society have said it? Or Indy? I don't trust her. I watched her help Hunter with the rocks, her long hair flying wildly around her in her eagerness. What does she want? What is she hiding? I glance over at Cassia. She's in a new place where everything is different. She's seen people who died in terrible ways, and she's been hungry and lost and come into the desert to find me. All these things a society girl should never have to experience. I see a glint in her eyes, and she looks at me. It makes me smile. Hold our breath, she seems to say. Move the earth. We've been doing that all along.